about what was happening with the work that was being proposed. I've provided you a memo that describes that. There are a number of photographs in the packet that probably, Mallory, if you just want to kind of step through those photographs, this may be helpful. That's the initial photograph that Rachel sent me. A little hard to see detail. Keep going on that. This is a photograph with removals in process. The handrails are gone. Can't quite tell if the porch is gone entirely. If you go to the next photograph, this is one where the one existing handrail, and you can tell it's not an original handrail, tell by the mark on the wall there below the top of the handrail that the original handrail was a shorter handrail. But this is the existing handrail at the time they began work. In this case, the porch floor remains to the front door, but the flooring on the remainder of the porch has been removed. If you go to the next photo, that gives you a little closer up. It's a tongue and groove. It's about 3 inches. I gave you the nominal dimension in the report. It's about 3 1/8 inches by 3/4 inches, tongue and groove flooring. If you go to the next, Mallory. This is the wood that, so let me just in order of sequence here. I talked with Rachel about the flooring at that point and expressed concern. And somewhere in that time frame, I'm not sure, but I believe her husband, I think he's here as well. At some time during that time frame, he also began work on putting flooring down. And this is the flooring that he is proposing. It's basically a pressure treated deck flooring. Go to the next slide. Subsequent to that, you begin to see the left of the photograph, you begin to see one of the posts for the railing showing up. But again, this I think is when I met both Rachel and her husband out on the property looking at the deck. Talked about what the finished deck might look like. Next item. You begin to see the handrail over on the left and the balusters that were installed, very much similar to a typical outdoor deck, but not typical of a historic district, a deck within a front porch within a historic district. Go to the next photograph. That's a long shot of the porch. There was also structural work done here. I'm not an expert on structural work, but it's a very sturdy, strong deck in my view, from what I've seen of this. Unfortunately, the structural work was done without a permit. So the building office is also going on and is working with me to assure that what we come up with the Historic District Commission, that they can take that out and go look at the deck and make sure proper permits are approved and to make sure that the structure is what it should be. So there's a step, aside from just finishing the deck, there's a step to go through with the building office. Need to know what the Historic District Commission is going to approve here forward. Next slide. Another shot of the handrail that is being proposed. I provided a sketch. Maybe you could go down to the sketch that's in this just to give a quick reference. Yeah, well, it's a little hard to see. Well, you can see in the sort of the middle to upper, at the top of the page, there's kind of a section through a handrail. That's an intent to show what the existing handrail looked like, with a top and bottom rail, and then the spindles or balusters within that connecting into the bottom of the top rail and the top of the bottom rail. If you go back then to what's being proposed, it's balusters that are being placed on the exterior side of the rail. So it's a very different railing than what was there historically and what has typically been done historically within the district. It's not to say there aren't rails like this in the neighborhood. The district's been around for a long time, or has been around for a long time, and some things were done prior to district review, and there may have been some things that have been done without district review, but it's a different hand. Want to just take a look down through any of the other photographs? I'm not sure if there's more detail there that would be helpful. Mallory, do you want to roll down there a little bit? Well, the base of this as well is a question in terms of the final design of this. Lattice work of some sort was likely along the base of the porch here. It wouldn't have been in the form that this photograph indicates. It would have been a more horizontal and vertical lattice, or even vertical posts, smaller posts that effectively comprise a lattice. And the detail of what the porch will look like is a matter of question in all of this. As you saw in earlier photographs, the porch flooring was extended out. You can see it in this photograph. The porch flooring is extended out to the face of the structural member, but not beyond. So if you were to apply a face board along there and the lattice work underneath, you're extending beyond the floor. It's not the standard detail that you're going to find on a porch. I suppose this porch has one advantage the other doesn't, that the tongue and groove doesn't have, which is water can drain through it. And you don't have the runoff problem nearly as you might have if it were all tongue and groove. Tongue and groove, this would then just run down the face of the fascia board on that porch. I think you get the idea of what the concerns are. The sketch that I provided suggested that sort of pattern there of lattice and a frame around the lattice and the railings attached to the posts, the columns that are on the porch. That's the traditional way of attaching it. An alternative might be to have a post next to the columns. I know the owners are concerned about the durability, the strength of the handrail. I don't know if that would be any better for them or not. But this sketch is sort of the concept of what would be an appropriate front porch in terms of the character of that. So I've given you sort of my side of things. Rachel, I guess I'd suggest, unless you have any questions of me right now, I'd suggest maybe Rachel jump in, Rachel or her husband.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. My name is Ignacio Martinez. I live in 204, and one of the 4x4 posts for the handrail that faces the front, we removed that one, and we were hoping that we could tie it into that round post for more strength, because the way they used to be, they had some nails or screws right to those white posts. And I had a friend of ours come by with his little kid, and they almost tipped over it because they weren't strong enough, and I would hate to be sued or anything. So that's why I did it the way I did it. It's right now they are sturdy. People could jump over them. Like I say, I got children. I would hate for my children to fall over them, The banister, I did see which one he was talking about. So that one's on order. That one should be coming in any time. Also the lattice, I had a very hard time finding the lattice, the horizontal and vertical. Normally everywhere around here, they sell them where they're diagonal. But I did find them. I have a friend of mine that was able to get me one, and it's coming from Zealand Lumber, but from like 4 or 5 different states. So it should be here hopefully within a week. And like I say, the tongue and groove, the only tongue and groove that I've been able to find, I found some tongue and groove that are 4 inches, but they're not treated, and it will retain water and rot again like the other ones were. I do have that treated wood, that 1x4, which is decking, and I wanted to last, as long as this house can last, and make it look nice, because all this traffic that we got. I was hoping to have it done before tulip time, but because what happened, there's no tulip time no more. But I do want it to look, as nice as possible. So, I just want the neighborhood looking nice.
Okay. Thanks for providing the additional comments and the context for what you're working on. I think between Phil's update and the homeowner's update, is there anything else before the commission starts discussing, or we may have some questions for you too?
No, nope, that's it.
Okay. So I guess I would just like to make sure things are clear and the process is clear in my head too. So I believe, Phil, it was just this was a replace in kind. Was it a full application and then it was administratively approved, or?
Rachel called me and I went out and looked at the front porch with her, and we talked about it. And because it's replacement in kind, she did not need to make application.
Got it.
But it turned out not to be replacement in kind.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So that kind of gets us to where we are today. And then, so in terms of what the commissioners need to think about is just the pictures that we're seeing is essentially the new proposal. I guess that's what, as we're looking through it, I think, we can visualize some sides, but it's a little hard to know what the front elevation ultimately is going to end up looking like, but we may need to talk through that, commissioners, just so we're all kind of on the same page. And so it'd really be talking about everything from the dimension of the floor planks to the dimensions of the guardrail and balusters. And then also, like we were talking about, the detailing of the enclosure on the lower part of the porch as well. So let's see how we want to go. I guess, does anybody have any additional questions or clarifications before we kind of start? From the commission? Just to kind of add to it, in Phil's packet, he has things to consider. So I don't think we've talked a little bit about the differences of the flooring. So tongue and groove versus the pressure treated deck boards, the dimensional aspect of them is a little different. So just to kind of note that we need to be okay with that or consider that when we're talking about the project. The handrail, we talked about some of the differences with the posts, but I guess one thing I would ask too is that are you raising the handrail? The comment on safety or rigidity, I guess, came through, but is the height the height was staying the same as one of those initial images? Is that right, Phil? Or
yeah,
Rachel? Good question. Yeah.
The height of the rails, I measured the old rails and I got them the same height. The only difference is, if you notice that the picture with that rail that is complete, I put a 6-inch board, a flat board on top, just in case, because my wife wanted solar lights, so I could, just put some solar lights up on top so we could have some lighting at night.
Okay.
And
So
but because of the banister, we can remove that top board and just drill in a banister up on top, because all it is to hold, to hold up, to put your hand on it or whatever. It's more of a design thing that the banister does.
got it. So I think so. If I'm understanding you correctly, the overall height is just maybe the thickness of the top board taller than what was there before. Is that right?
No, it's the same with the banister. If I do put the banister, then it's going to be maybe an inch taller.
Got it. Okay. All right. So the height, from what we know or what we've discussed, is matching the previous height of the guardrail.
Yeah.
Okay. And then the other things to consider here was, there was a sketch that was issued, and there's some structural consideration that's being done to the work.
What we did is we just put little extra footings just to be on the safe side. We just put some extra footings, 4x4s, and I did go 4 feet deep so I could be underneath the frost line, and I put concrete. Like I say, I was just going the extra 110% just so nothing would ever happen. All the footings that we put on, they're all 4 feet with concrete.
I would just add to that I have no issues with the structure of the porch. That's an issue that the building office will have to look at and determine whether they're comfortable with it or not. My concern and the comments that I've heard up to this point are really, what does the exterior of this end up looking like? And I think the way the structure's been done, you can see in the sketch that's on the screen right now, that middle post, the piece of the frame could very easily fit right in front of one of the posts that was installed. So I think this is a conceptual drawing, but I think it probably works fairly well with the structure that was installed at this point.
I have a question. Has the siding been cut through where the posts are attached to the wall of the house?
When the house was purchased, there was already hose. If you see those little hose,
Right.
those were already there because the people that lived here before us, they're the ones that put the taller handrails. Because I'm thinking it's because code has to be 36 inches or taller. So I think when they sold the house, they made the previous owners put them at 36 inches or taller so it could pass code and they could be able to sell the house.
But at this point, when you were starting to replace the porch, it looks like that new post, like you've cut the siding vertically so that you could fit the post against the beam or something. Is that right, or is the post just simply
The post is just simply on the siding.
Okay, so you didn't cut through the siding anymore. No. It just simply lays on top of the siding. Okay.
That was the idea, so I could try to cover those holes so my house wouldn't look with those holes.
Gotcha.
I hope it looks nice.
Yeah, I follow the logic of trying to visually hide the holes. I think it's a nice detail too, just from a historic building standpoint, to try not to connect a new element back to the home. So this is an interesting project because that siding was probably put on around the historic guardrail, and that's where the holes came from in the beginning. Mallory, do you mind going back to just the overall picture of the deck that you were at, if you go up a little bit? I had a couple other questions. Just at the stairs themselves, are you just leaving them as is, or is any work associated with the stairs?
If I have the permission, I will replace them because,
okay,
as you can see, if I just want everything looking the same. I don't want having something old and new. I want everything done. So the
Okay.
stairs will be replaced.
Part of the replacement.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. And then I would assume too that the same architectural style of railing
Yep.
would extend down on one side or both sides of the stairs. And would the stairs be the same dimension, like the same width?
Well, I would do them, as you can see the picture, all they are is a 2x4 with a 4x4. I would do them, I was planning on doing them the same, but instead of having a 2x4 stuck to the ground, I wanted to put a 4x4 with concrete just so they could be sturdy, and we wouldn't have problems for the mailman or anybody falling. And if need be, I've done them before where I put them on both sides, or if it's not needed, I could just put it on one side.
All right, and then I have one more question. Is any, like, the structural work that's being done, has there been any discussion about whether or not the columns would actually be structural enough to support the guardrails? Because you had mentioned concern about the stability of, like for instance, the guardrail that's in place right there.
Well,
and that's why you incorporated the posts, right? Because you wanted
Yep.
it to be more rigid. Okay.
Yep, I was able to take a look through one of the little cracks of where those poles are, and you can see that it's hollow inside. So the only reason I put those 4x4s was just so I could make sure that if somebody leaned against the railing, it's not gonna fall, and it would have a stronger structure with that 4x4.
Okay. All right, guys. I guess as we're thinking and as we're discussing it too, one of the things I just want to lift out of the packet too was, I mean, I know that the line in here is that with the state of things, it's probably been kind of frustrating for the homeowner. We've already talked about the tulip time deadline. So, we want to try to give them direction in order to move forward. But this is a pretty big project. And sometimes, Rachel, and I apologize, I forgot your name, sir. Can you remind me? Ignacio, thank you. Sometimes in order for us to just be the most consistent or give the best feedback, we do require certain level of documentation. So I am not saying we need that necessarily right now, but it is something to think about, commissioners, if that's something that we think we could handle narratively by describing everything, or if it would be in the best interest to point back to Phil, like the sketch that Phil keeps referencing, and then just kind of use that drawing to tie back to, I think the drawing, Phil, was more of a profile or a side view, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was it was really rough just to partly convey the
intent
we had when I was out on the site, but also to give a sense of the elements and what they attach to. Generally, it could be a better sketch. I mean, there could be more detail to it that was clearer than what's shown. Could have dimensions, could have a number of things on it. But
Okay, so I've talked a lot. I guess I'd like to hear other people's thoughts on the project. John, were you going to say something?
Yes, I'm a little I'm unclear. When I look at Phil's sketch, sorry, is this Phil's sketch?
Yes.
Or Ignacio's? Okay.
yeah, this is mine.
It seems like the round post is continuous. The left one, the middle one, and the right one. And then the railing occurs between them. But on one of the things, it looks more like the railing's going to come out and go around them. And I'm thinking that's a real change from the appearance that it had before. Could we get some assurance that the railing would occur between the round posts and not come out and cover them?
Yes, sir. If I didn't take pictures, but I could show that post that you're talking about. I think his name is Phil. Him
Yes.
and I, we spoke about that, and I did remove that one from the front, how the picture is, and because I noticed it too. It should have gone through the inside like that other one. So
Right.
but I did take it off.
Okay, so when we're looking at the front of the house, we would still see the 3 round posts,
Yes,
and
sir.
they wouldn't get covered up by any kind of handrail because the handrail would be between them. Is that right?
Yes, sir. Yep.
Great, good, thank you.
Just stay with that, John, for a second.
Mhm.
What is your comfort level if immediate in the picture in front of us, immediately to the right of the column, there would be a post, and then immediately to the left of the right-hand column, there would be a post, as a versus tying it to the column.
Yeah,
Is proposing is the separate posts.
I think the visual is that the posts should support the railing, and I don't, if the posts can't support the railing, then I don't know. Then why are they there? Visually, the posts would seem to support the railing and hold the roof up all at the same time. And if for some reason that can't be done, I'm confused.
You mean the columns, John?
Yeah.
I think so,
Okay,
yes.
okay.
Columns instead of posts, right?
Yep,
You are.
okay.
Columns. Yeah, the columns would seem to be the dominant feature there,
Mhm.
and they would at least appear to hold up the roof, and they would at least appear to hold the handrails. But if you put a 4x4 right next to them, I think that changes the visual quite a bit.
Yeah, I would agree with John. I guess I feel like the most like the floor planks are probably less visible than the vertical orientation of the guardrail, right? So the things to really think about in my mind are what we're seeing in elevation here in the sketch, and if the proposal in front of us is either close enough or in keeping enough with the historical details, or if there's some guidance or some feedback we can give the homeowners in terms of what they might be able to do to bring it more in line with the critical elements that we're seeing on screen. So John, I think you mentioned the, like what we just talked about there was the ability to tie the horizontals into the columns themselves rather than depending on a post
Mm-hmm.
to support them. Is there anything else about the proportions or the elevation we're looking at? Like I'm really pleased to hear that you were able to source something from a lattice standpoint down below that looks more similar to the sketch. How do the rest of the commissioners feel about that part of the design?
Good. I think the diagonal is decidedly a different time period, and the vertical horizontal is much more in keeping with this kind of structure.
Agreed.
And much
I
more
agree with
appealing.
that.
It looks as if it goes with the porch as opposed to the other one, which clearly looks tacked on. I mean, I think you've done a great job of really working hard to source these kind of materials for this.
And for the recording, that was Kim Ike. She joined us as we were reviewing the application. So hi, Kim.
Apologies. Hi.
No worries.
Problem.
One of the things that I would think, and again, I'm not tied up in knots about the flooring, but it seems like what's going to happen over time is they're going to spread apart a little bit. So I'm thinking that from the front, if there was like a bullnose or just even a facing strip that then tied in with all the horizontal elements of the lattice and the, whatever supporting structure there is for the lattice, that sort of covered up the edge view of the floorboards. I would think that would kind of help from a, historic standpoint, because again, over time, what you're going to see is sort of a gap in those deck boards, because they're going to look like a deck, instead of a tongue and groove floor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mark.
I've noticed that a lot of builders do something they call picture framing, where they intentionally put a sideways piece right where you would otherwise be viewing all those end grains, and it's a little dressier. And can I ask one other thing? On at least one of the photographs, it sort of looked like, Andrew, help me, what would you call the base of the column? It's got a little flared piece. Are those getting buried in the process, or will they sit on top of the, oh, thank you. That's just,
Yeah, I was wondering the same thing actually too, if the new flooring was going around the column bases or if they were sitting on top. It looks like they're staying on the original structure.
okay.
Is that right?
Yes, sir, we are.
Okay. And then the flooring's getting cut out around the column bases.
Yeah.
Okay, now in that picture, to my eye, it looks like the column base has dropped or is installed below the level of the deck. Is that correct, or is that something that's going to change?
It might be a tiny bit lower just because these boards are thicker than what the original tongue and groove were. So,
Okay.
you know, but as you can see, the base on the bottom, it has like a nice what do you call it, design to it, so you can still see the design, but a little bit is underneath. It goes below that top decking board a tiny bit. Like I say, just, and it's because the decking board is a little thicker than what the tongue and groove was there.
I see.
Do you have,
Go
sorry.
ahead, Stephanie.
Do you have any plan then to, I guess, protect the bottom of that column from moisture? Because it looks like it's probably gotten, I guess, beat up in its long life. And if that decking sits on top of that, is that something that you guys are worried about at all? Or are you planning to like seal it or paint it or something?
Well, yeah, we're hoping to have our house painted within the next month, but what's
That's
holding
awesome.
us back is this deck.
Okay, sure.
If I could just follow up on John's comment about the picture frame notion of this, it might be a way to help accomplish the overhang of the floor beyond not just this structural piece that holds the floor, but if you put a faceboard on that, you put a half round underneath, as the sketch had shown, that's sort of the typical detail of a porch. If you did the picture frame across the front, that might give you enough overhang then past the ends of those boards that you could accommodate that kind of detail in there.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking too, Phil, that you know, it could be a fairly wide piece, you know, half the width of the piece of board, because you can actually build it up in reverse. I mean, support it by the underneath pieces.
Yeah.
So stop right there, Mallory. That's the image that they're talking about, kind of in the top left of the sketch, where there's a little tiny L piece that it says detail trim, and then below it is, I guess that's kind of the components we're talking about, if that's clear to everybody. So the thing that's not showing is the picture frame piece that John mentioned. Like in this image, the flooring is extending out and then the trim's being put underneath it. But in the application that we're seeing on screen, we'd have to essentially put two pieces of trim kind of on the face or the edge of the deck to hide the ends of the flooring.
Yeah, because right now the flooring ends right at the edge where those framing pieces that Phil drew in, and the 2x8 or whatever it is, vertical 2x8. You know,
Yeah.
you draw a line straight up from that, and that would be your picture frame piece on the right-hand side.
Yeah, it would be a bit cobbled together, I think, to try to pull that off. But
Well, the only other option is to tear off the existing boards and make them longer, which.
Right.
I think personally, I'd like to see a little bit more stuff fleshed out, you know, in terms of some of these details. I mean, I know we're kind of on the clock and doing stuff, but and especially the element too of the connection to the posts, and I have an old house and I had to use a kind of a connection plate, where I actually put something on the posts and then slid the railing pieces down on top of it so that it's basically hidden. And I'm guessing those kinds of things are available. And my porch is pretty sturdy porch rail. Again, if those columns are really soft wood, that's a different issue. But I feel like I would want to go as much as possible to have the railings connect directly to the posts and not have an extra support piece. And I'd want something pretty sketched out about how that railing on the right hand side, if it's going to be a single or double railing going down to the sidewalk, that looked more like the rest of the porch railing than something kind of different. Especially, I guess, since there have been some confusion, it just feels like we ought to all be on the same page as far as, for the homeowner and for us, what are we approving and how it's going to be built.
I agree.
Yeah, I guess I kind of alluded to it as well, but I think an elevation of all three sides, just showing design intent for the railing would be really helpful in terms of considering and then approving or this design. I guess one thing we could do today, though, if that's kind of the direction we're going, is make sure that we're clear with regards to what we recommend. So the concept of attaching the railing to the existing columns rather than posts, I think, has been preferred by generally everybody who's been commenting. Am I wrong, commissioners?
No, you're not.
No, you're not wrong.
Okay. And I hear us focusing mostly on the guardrail. So for the homeowner, I don't know that, like we've talked about the flooring, we've talked about the lattice work down below. I don't know that we have as much, feedback. We've seen some similar applications like this in the past. So the lattice, I think we all were in agreement that was a good solution. The flooring, are we all sort of at consensus or general consensus with regards to the detailing that's been discussed? Adding pieces to kind of hide the profiles on the long end. And
so we're not looking at the end grain. When we look at the front elevation, there'd be a piece that would cap that one way or another. Okay. Yes, that's important, I think. I think the fact that I think we'll have to say that pressure treated 1x6s are not a historic flooring product. On the other hand, they're not as visible from the street as the end grain of them would be. So I think capping the end grain is sort of ameliorates the problem with there being not actually historic.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely right, John. I was just kind of trying to look and see. I think for the over half of the deck is gone, right?
Yeah, I think the entire deck is gone now.
The entire deck, okay. So I get, as we're talking, I kind of feel like we're moving closer, unless somebody disagrees, and this is what I want to hear from you guys. I think we're almost moving closer to tabling and then asking for a little bit more detail or a more further documented submission so that we could better understand the railing design, the stair design, and then how the railing translates to the stairs themselves. And I don't know. I actually don't know in this world of virtual meetings, Phil, if we'd be able to, come back, if we'd push to the next meeting, or if we'd be able to set up a special conversation. You'd have to guide us on that. But that seems to be the
reluctance. I'm sorry. There's been a reluctance at City Hall to have virtual meetings. outside of the normal meeting date, but that
Okay.
would get into June, and I know these folks would like to
Sure.
keep moving on this. So
Right, and I mean,
it's
this,
something I'd have to explore.
I think we should, could we consider a special meeting? Maybe even, I mean, on site if we needed to get, we can all stand 6 feet apart or whatever, just so we can get this done for them, because I mean, it has been going on for quite some time. And I mean, what if this gets extended and we can't have our, June meeting?
Yeah.
Sure.
And
I-
that's, I mean, that's not fair at that point.
Well,
I
I'm
got-
not.
I have to say I'm sort of bound by what our city manager is giving us for construction
Right.
on meetings. So
Mhm.
let me explore that. I'd
Okay.
love to do that. I think that would be great if we could get the detail, and then as soon as that detail is ready, convene a meeting either virtually or on the site. I think that would be great.
Right.
Let me see if
And
it's
that-
possible to do.
Not to put more responsibility or pressure on you, Phil, because I know you did this sketch, but I mean, I think just something similar to this sketch of all three, like this one could be just considered for both the sides of the deck. The only thing that's really missing is the front and the stair rail,
Yeah, and the resolution of the nosing. or
the edge detail. Yeah.
that
Right.
edge. Yeah, that's a tricky one, I think, but yes.
Could,
Help them with it.
could I also comment when we talk about the handrail going down the left or the side of the stairs? There's a couple things going on. We're not the building department, so I don't know what's required. I would have thought, though, that the same kind of, don't we have a 3-inch, a requirement that a 3-inch ball can't fit between the pickets? That's not the right word, I know, but I'm way out of my field now because I don't know what the building department feels about that. But I guess visually, I would see the same kind of railing that we have going across the front and along the sides, coming down the stairway, albeit at a 45-degree angle.
Yeah.
But
Right, no, I
was
think that's exactly right. Yeah, I mean, that's what I would agree with. That's what I would want to see. And that's what we would typically see in the historic district, is not just a top and bottom, but pretty much a matching railing and spindles.
I would agree with that too.
And would those occur on both sides or just arbitrarily on one? I don't know. I'm not proposing anything.
Let me see if there's a code requirement in that regard. Because that's
Okay.
it's a building code issue.
It's only for right-handed people. Left-handed people are on their own,
And you can't come
You're
out.
on your own.
except
You
they get
can't
the
go-
advantage
you can't
going
leave the
down.
house either. Yeah. Okay. That's
I think a sketch would clarify that, and I think it would be
Yes.
good for us to come to consensus on what that looks like. So
and that sketch needn't to be any more sophisticated than this one. I think this is fine. We're not trying to add costs, but this sketch tells us where we're headed, and it's fine.
agreed. And if we need to add dimensions, we can handle dimensions narratively or with words. We've done that before also.
Can I just say one more thing? When I look at the sketch, the base of the column looks to be completely visible from the street or from anywhere else. At least in the photograph, I thought it was not at all that the case. But should we ask that the base of the column be fully visible? Or
Yeah, so I had a question about that too, John, because it shows in the drawing that the pad that the column sits on, the decorative detail, is
Mhm. We lost you.
subservient to the new top of the porch floor.
Can you scroll up so we see that the one corner where you could
The
really
photo.
see, there,
Yeah.
that one. Yeah, I had a question because it looks to me almost like that. Is that decorative detail a sliding element that can actually go up? It almost looks like a collar that you would
Uh-huh.
slide up and tuck under the boards. But
Looks like it has dropped.
yeah, that's what I'm saying
When
is
the-
I
when
wonder
the-
if it actually
Yeah.
could be raised back up and tucked under the boards, then it would be the way we want it.
Perfect. Yeah.
I guess we could go.
And it
look
would
at
help for water runoff too, I think.
Yeah, I think that Kim pointed that out, that really you could caulk that edge and then the water would run off. Phil, do you remember anything when you went and saw it, whether that was what that looked like or?
It looks identical to the ones we have on our house, and I'll tell you, it is a round pad that sits underneath it. So
Pretty
Okay,
thin piece that's dropped, exposing the unpainted wood on the column.
that's the question.
The column behind it, up in the upper right, and that doesn't appear to have the ring at all around.
That's right.
right, so maybe it is just a collar versus a pad.
Yeah, because the other side did not have it. The other side, if you're looking at the house, the side of the right side, they
Yeah, there's a
didn't
good
have
shot.
it. When we
The
bought
column
the
in the
house,
middle. Column
Has a square.
looks like it has them both, it looks like.
it's just
Oh.
a board. They put a board under there just to, just to hold, to have something underneath. But the one with that round column,
Okay.
that's the only one that had it as on the left side of the home. And like I say, the columns are gonna be painted a different color from the house and everything, so we'll be able to see it from far, far away. I promise it's not gonna be pink, but you will see it.
Okay. So I guess I'm getting the sense that we are moving more towards maybe a motion to table rather than a motion to approve or deny. And when I say table, it's we need to talk about whether or not we would need a site visit to further discuss, or a sketch and a site visit, or both, and what the process or what the order is, just so everybody has clarity in terms of what's next. So I guess as the chair, I can't necessarily make that proposal, but would be curious to hear people's thoughts.
I would move to table this pending getting better sketches of how the elements will actually be played out, and with the open understanding that if we can and should meet at the house, I'd be willing to do that.
Is that a motion, John?
Yes, it is.
I support
And that was a support by
Cook.
Mark Cook. Thank you. All right. Any other discussion from the commission members on John's motion?
I guess I just have something for the homeowners. Do you guys have everything that you need from us? I feel like we've kind of thrown a lot of information at you. Do you feel like you have what you need to get a better sketch put together?
Well, like I say, I guess the only really issue that we seem that we're having is the railing. I understand what you guys mean about the railing. You guys just don't
Sure.
want the top board. You guys don't want the railing connected to those 4x4s that would make it sturdy. You guys would just rather have them hooked up to those white
Yep,
poles.
your columns, yep.
Yeah, we can do that too, but like I say, it's, to me, it wouldn't be safe. I wouldn't want people walking up there just to holding like that, because like I say, those columns, they're hollow from the inside,
Okay.
but if that's how you guys want it, we can do it that way. Like I say, you live right near me. You see, I got kids, I got nephews coming over, and I would hate for somebody to, and we're not small people, you see. We right now, if we lean on that railing that I put up right now, it'll hold anything. It's not blocking the columns. It's not, you can see the columns. But if you don't want that, if you don't want it like that, I can hook them up to those columns. I just need to get it done because I got these painting guys. I've been holding them back for the past 2 months already.
Right.
Yeah.
I know that's.
So from a process standpoint, I guess I was wondering if we could try to get a sketch that's maybe a little bit more in line with some of the feedback that was given tonight, and then could we potentially schedule a time where we go you know, like, could we review the new sketch and be on site to Stephanie's suggestion at safe distances, and then vote as a group to move things forward?
Yeah, if you guys, the sooner the better. Can you guys come tomorrow or anything? Because
I mean, we're pretty much all free right now, so.
yeah, if you guys want to come right now, come on right now, because like I say, these painters, they've been, man, I feel bad. I've been holding them back.
Is Phil going to help with the sketch? I guess I just wanted to understand who was producing the sketch. I know Phil did the work on that initial thing. Is that something, Phil, you're willing to sort of flesh out a little bit, just so we have a reference point? I just wasn't sure who was going to do the sketch.
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking I'll call Rachel or Ignacio tomorrow and try to put a sketch together. Trying to pick up on what I've heard you say, and I'll try to arrange a meeting as soon as possible. I heard.
Okay.
As soon
Sounds good.
I don't know when that'll be. I don't know how quickly we can get to it. If nothing else, we can't come tomorrow because we've got to schedule it and notice, get a notice in the paper and or
Right.
on the website and that sort of thing. So.
Mhm.
Is it true they have to have the building people sign off on the base work anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, they're
That has
going to be asking some of the same questions about the handrails on the steps and, that kind of thing. So, yeah.
So that we don't go back and forth more times than necessary, the picture that's up right now, to me, looks fine, except it almost looks like the camera is outside of the porch, right?
Yes.
Doesn't it look like it's backward? I mean, wouldn't those rails be the horizontal rails continuous on the outside?
Horizontal rails would be continuous on the top and the bottom
Right.
on both sides, and the posts would be in between those two horizontal rails.
Got it. But wouldn't it be more typical for these, the screws that hold the spindles in, shouldn't those be on the inside of the porch?
They would be coming up the top and the bottom. You wouldn't see the screws from the side because the spindles end underneath the top and bottom rails. If you look at the flip side of the old porch, it's easier to understand it. Before they took down
There. Okay. Sorry.
Well, I think farther up there was a better one that had the. There. Stop. Yeah. See, those rail, the spindles just end underneath.
Got it.
And so you basically make the railing first and then attach it to the posts.
Right. But since this has changed and now we have spindles that come down and attach to the sides of the rails.
But I think we're not accepting that, is the way I'm understanding it.
I see.
This is what we want, right? It should look just like it does in the picture there.
Okay.
So
Is that the way people are thinking
John,
about
I
it?
think you're thinking about it. I think John's thinking about it the same way that you think about a fence in terms of what's on the inside versus what's on the outside.
Correct.
And Mark, what you're explaining is the way that a traditional porch is captured, with there's usually like a little groove in the underside of the top railing, and then it comes down and there's usually a little bit of a channel.
But I guess
Kind of
I'm,
between those two.
am I right that what we're looking for is what looks like the old porch railing, not the deck style porch railing? I mean, is that what we're wanting to have? I mean, Phil, maybe I'm misunderstanding, or are we sort of agreeing to the deck style porch railing?
I'm suggesting the deck style railing is not historically appropriate.
Right, I agree.
That's what I agree with too.
Yeah. Okay.
It should be like the bottom rail should have a groove in it, and the top one has a groove, and the spindles fit in between them, are attached top and bottom, and built first and then attached after.
Okay, and you're saying all those screws would be going down from the top or up from the bottom? They wouldn't be going in from the
Correct.
outside?
Right.
Okay, okay. So my point is moot if we're going to change that, because I just thought that railing was up backward, that the dressy side was inside the porch instead of outside. To Kim's point about fences, you know, there's a dressy side to the fence and there's a working side to the fence. But I agree with you, Pierre, and with Mark that the railing we're seeing right now is much more traditional and much more acceptable. The other railing might be okay on a back deck or somewhere that's not, you know, showing to the street. But yeah, I think that what we're looking at right now next to the 204 is a better,
Yeah.
a more.
Okay, so and sorry to cut you off, Pierre, but
Sorry.
no, it's okay. We do have a motion in a second, so we need to finish the motion at some point too. I think all this is good clarification, but I think honestly we're just kind of drifting back towards consensus on the sketch. And if the go to work after this is to kind of put together a sketch that helps us understand both sides and then the front and the railing that comes down the stairs, I think that's probably what we need. And it sounds like the building department will need in order to approve both the structural kind of rehab of the deck and then us to kind of weigh in on the final historic nature of the design. And then really the next step as part of the motion, like you said, John and Mark, you seconded, was that Phil would kind of try to pull us together as soon as possible for another review once the sketch is ready. So I guess now is the time that we vote on the motion to table as proposed by John. So I'm going to go around the room again, and so I will just start with Cook. Approve or support or deny. All right. Thanks, Mark. Fowler.
Approve.
Shay.
Approve.
Ike.
Approve.
And Nieves. Stephanie, are you frozen?
Can I ask something?
All right. Her picture's not moving. Yeah, just a second, sir. We'll I guess I don't know, Phil. We're in the process of voting. Do we need to finish the vote, or is it?
You really should.
Yeah, just a second, sir. I would also approve the motion. Hopefully Stephanie comes back up online. So the motion that just passed, pending, I guess Stephanie's vote doesn't necessarily change it, and we still have a quorum based on the numbers. The motion that just passed was to table it in light of getting a further sketch, and then we will be pulled back together to review the sketch and talk about it potentially on site. So now I will pause and let you ask a question, sir.
All right. As that picture that you guys were showing where the white railing was, and how those spindles are in between both the 4x4s. Well, if you notice, some of those are kicked out because that's what happens. They're real easy when kids are running around and everything. That's, you know, they tend to climb and play on them. You'll see that they get broken right away. There's not enough, you know, how can I say it? They're not sturdy enough in that way. Now, if we screw them on the way they are, they're very sturdy. You know, they don't move or anything like that. That's why we didn't want them the way that other one was, because they break off real easy. They fall off. And those right there, the only thing that was holding them, the people that lived here or they bought them at Menards that way, I don't know. They had staples holding them. I got screws treated.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I have a similar porch railing, and I have screws. I mean, similar to the white one, but I have screws top and bottom, and I've never had any problems with them being kicked out or anything. I mean, I built it from scratch, just like we're talking about, and, you know, it's a very sturdy railing. I feel like it can be built sturdy. You're right. If you just put staples in there, it's not going to work at all.
But this
Mark, we
design,
have the
we're
same
looking,
construction on ours and have not had a problem with our kids.
I think if
Okay,
they're
so
properly built, that's not an issue.
and I know part of the sketch was a section detail through the guardrail. So again, I think we can probably review the final design. Like as the homeowner, if the additional horizontal is something that's just an absolute and a must, I guess I'd encourage you to put it in the revised sketch, and then we'll talk about it again, and we'll need to vote on it. But I guess it's good for us to know where you're at with it. But I do agree with what the commissioners have weighed in on. Like I think if the construction is done in a way, hopefully we can help you guys figure out a rigid way to construct that railing. All right, I don't want to rush this one. I don't want to rush it, but we did vote, and I think we have a majority. Is the path forward clear? Like to Stephanie's point, is the path forward clear to everybody on the call?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so Phil, we'll just look to you to get a hold of us.
Okay.
I have a question. So it being tabled, can he start to work on it and do stuff like finish doing the flooring on there, since that's gonna be, because we're gonna do like the picture frame, you know, with the lattice and everything, and we could cover up those ends, the end grain, cap off the end grain with the frame and then the lattice. So like we ordered the lattice, so is he gonna be able to do that? And is he gonna be able to put flooring on, or do we have to wait for the builders to come and approve everything and then the meeting, and then it doesn't happen until June when he's back in work, and then we're just gonna have a broken porch, even for 4th of July when everybody's walking by too?
Yeah, the challenge for this is the building official will not approve anything until they have the Historic District Commission approval in hand, and they've had a chance to get out and check the structural work as well. So as soon as a decision is made on this application, then they can do what they need to do. So,
Okay, so we can't do any more work on it until.
no, you really shouldn't. And there are details to work out, like the flooring and how that meets the front of the porch, and how you frame it, whether you can or can't frame around that in the way that hides the individual boards from the front view. I think that's a tricky detail. But those things have to be resolved before you just continue putting down boards.
Okay, so we can't do anything.
I don't have approvals to do anything.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry. I know that's probably not the answer you were hoping to get from this meeting, but I guess I hope that we can stay the course on the plan. And Phil, you said you were going to reach out tomorrow potentially, and we'll work to meet to review the revised drawings as quickly as we can.
Yep.
Okay.
And just for clarification, I don't know if Stephanie is back. I don't.
Her name disappeared from the participants list, so
And she's
So
not
she did not vote on that?
she wasn't able to. No.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for Ignatius and Rachel. Thank you for joining the meeting. Like we said, Phil will be in touch, and we'll look forward to helping review and finalize the plan for the porch.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Phil.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. The next item on the agenda is I don't think we've had anybody join either, so I'm just going to go to the third item.
Okay.
Mallory, you might have to help me. There we go. Thanks. Dawn, Dawn Lehman is on the call. We've met her in the beginning. So it is the project at 97 West 12th Street.
Dawn, I'm assuming those other folks that were here, I don't know if they're still here.
Oh, they're here. I see them.
Is that Ed, your architect or designer? Or?
Yeah, Ed is in the foreground in the white, and then
Okay.
I'm Craig.
they're the builders on the project.
Okay.
Hi, guys.
All right, thanks. Okay, let me just give a quick overview, and then you'll have a chance to add anything you or your builders can add what they need to the conversation. If you want to just jump down, Mallory, to the some of the images, it's a little easier to speak to the images. Why don't you stop there? Yeah, start with that one. This is a plan of the duplex. Includes both halves of the duplex. They're basically twins, reflected images of each other. You see on the right side of that, there are two locations where there is a proposal to introduce lifts, accessibility lifts. One is just immediately, I guess I think that's the living room, off the living room on the southeast corner, as Mallory's pointing out. That would be, if you look on the other half of the duplex, you'll see there's a projecting bay on that side as well. Projecting bays on both sides. This would be in place of the projecting bay, as I understand it.
Correct.
We can come back to the design of that in a second. And then the second lift would be a relocation of the rear stairs. And then the lift itself looks like it's inboard of the house that would get you up from grade up to the first floor level in the house. There's a roof that would extend from the back of the house to the garage that would provide a covering for that accessibility ramp or accessibility lift. And there is a structure built around the other lift as well that provides some protection. Want to go to the next screen? Shows, and you almost don't see it because of a well-drawn plan. But essentially the bump out on the right side there is that lift. You see that in the roof line of that little addition, you see the existing roof line of the current bump out, but then the full, it brings you out, I don't know the dimensions, brings you out another maybe 4 or 5 or 6 feet, something like that. Next photo. One thing to note, well, keep going, we'll come back to this one. That is the bump out where the small addition would be made, and the path to it would be from the back along a sidewalk to that lift and then into that space. Next, this is the rear. That's the existing stair. The existing stair would be moved towards you in the photograph, and the connector between the garage and the house would be behind that stair. Next photo. Similar photograph. Keep going. That's just a photograph of that side of the garage where the covering would attach, and the connector would attach. I would just note the small flat roofs on these rear porches that are existing on this. I believe, and I haven't, well, keep going. We'll see if in the next drawing, I think. Keep going. Okay. If you can slide that over a little bit. Okay. There's the design essentially of the proposed connector between the garage and the house. And that also gets you into the lift just inside that door, the door on the left. As I understand, the materials will match the materials on the house. It will look very similar to the design of the house, the character of the house. This was what I was going to point out on that one, on the picture at the picture at the top now, on the right hand side of the house, that has that flat roof before you get to that, the pitch on that. Again, I was equating that to similar roof styles on the back of the porch where you have those two balconies. So I guess in my visual analysis, it's very much in keeping with the character of the house. And there are 2 lifts. And I don't know that I have anything else to add. Dawn, did I miss anything?
No, that was a good description. Ed and Craig and Brian, am I correct in that, or is there something else that you'd want to add in?
No, I think you did a great job describing that.
I agree.
Thank you for that, Phil.
Yeah, that's a good observation that I appreciate. Yep. You're pointing out.
So Andrew, that's
Okay,
any
thanks.
questions?
Yeah. I have a couple. I'll maybe just get it started, and then commissioners, I'm sure if you guys have others. I didn't see a cut sheet necessarily for the windows that you guys were thinking of using. So is that, are you trying to get design intent approval first, and then is that something you guys can provide later?
Correct.
Okay. And then similar comment for the new door that would be on the exterior, but again, we don't need to dwell on that. I guess I think you guys have done a very sensitive job. This is just my initial reaction. Sensitive job in terms of addressing the home in areas where there's fairly little impact to the overall historic character or nature of the home. I think it's a hard, preparing for these types of things is difficult when it comes to merging them with historic properties. I can only imagine that's why there's 2 lifts actually proposed on this project. So I appreciate that, the sensitivity. I'm implying from all the drawings too that it's, the intent is to match all the existing materials and from shingles to siding, and we don't really get concerned with color. But yeah, that's where the foundation system, I guess, would probably be a matching in place
Correct.
condition as well. I think the size, scale, and massing, again, it's fairly delicate. It's not on the right of way. It's actually between the adjacent property. So it's not as visible. I know there's a note in the packet about the symmetry of the historic home, but we're dealing with something that is a health, safety, and wellness issue. So those are my comments, commissioners. Anybody else have any thoughts, questions, clarifications?
Yeah, I'm sure this has been a lot more work than a ramp design, but it honestly looks better from an exterior viewpoint in my mind than, ramps. I mean, I know the ramp would have been in the back of the house, but I agree with Andrew that it's really a very tasteful incorporation of the needs and the aesthetic. I like that the little breeze.
I would absolutely second that. It's very thought out and in scale with the home.
And thanks for putting together the architectural drawing packet. It just makes it that much easier for us to kind of understand and talk through. Could you zoom in, Mallory, on the notes for the railing? Are you guys just planning to use the exact same railing style that's on the exterior? Okay.
During the meeting before, we were even hatching a plan to reuse the existing one if we could.
Yes, those were custom built back in 2016, if anybody
Really?
recalls. I don't know if that any of you were on the board then. If you were, I apologize. But those railings were custom built to match the railings that are on the second story porches on the back of the home, as you can see.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so we're hoping that by moving those, the stairs will be rebuilt in front of the breezeway, the connector breezeway between home and garage, and that 45-degree angle, part of that railing will be able to be reused. We'll cut that down in some fashion. Because there'll be the same number of steps needed, so it should be possible. Am I correct in that, Craig?
Yeah, that's correct.
Do you guys have a gut feeling in terms of the windows? Are you thinking aluminum clad or wood or vinyl? Do you have a gut?
Well, match exact as close to exact as possible as we possibly can.
Material and proportion and everything?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the wood windows, the original to the home. And again, back in 2016, we added new storms because some of the original storms to the home were rotted. They were unusable. They were beginning to fall away. So we did they are aluminum. The storms that are on there now are aluminum inserts, storm inserts. So we would try and be consistent with that to match what's been updated with the last remodel.
That's great.
Yeah, because those stairs in the back, and I won't get too detailed, but those stairs as you see them now, as you come from the center of the patio and go up the stairs and then into the home, that none of that existed. There were just plank wooden stairs that went straight up to the door. You had to go up the stair, open the door, back up, and go into the home. So this is a much nicer design for ease of use, for safety, and also aesthetically. So we're going to try to replicate that. Again, it would just have to be rebuilt moving forward to accommodate the breezeway and the elevator lift. I wish we could just pick it up and move it forward. Obviously, that's not going to happen.
That's that too.
Because it was just done, and that stucco work, as everyone probably is aware, it was replicated beautifully. The builder at the time, Jeffrey Burke, who you're all familiar with, has a guy that still has that old school skill. So we'll be contacting him at some point to work his magic.
And you don't have to relocate any of those utilities that are back there.
They're very close to the
To
corner.
be determined.
To be determined, correct.
To be determined, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure the intent is to keep them on the back of the home and
That is correct.
as cheap and as less visible as possible. But
Correct. Don't really care for them there, but
Right.
they are, like you said, face the back of the home, not around the corner to the street. So that was, at least that's preferable. It'll just be a matter of, the dimensions of the door that'll be needed. And the door that will be going into the new door that will be going in, which is now that window in the back of the home, will just be a standard door there. It's just inside the circle there. That will be a standard door. That will not have to be a ADA width door. So it may be possible that, I'm not sure. I mean, we'll just add and company could weigh in on that, and that might be something we can't answer currently.
Yeah, we'll just have to, again, it'll have to be determined, so.
Yeah, I guess that's the simple answer. We'll stick with that.
Andrew, in response to your comment about the windows and doors, we did ask for a little additional information, and the spec sheet on both of those would be helpful. I'm happy and comfortable if you are as a board, I'm comfortable reviewing that administratively if you want to give the approval on the whole thing right now and not have to see it come back to you.
That makes sense to me.
Me too.
All right. Well, quiet usually means people are thinking, and hopefully it means they're considering making a motion. There is in the packet just a note in there to consider standard 9. So 9, just as a reminder, is that new additions and exterior alterations or related new construction shall not destroy the historic nature or materials that characterize the property. And that it also is the standard that has the note about size, scale, and massing, and that the architectural features are in keeping with the property.
Yeah.
And I noticed Stephanie's back, so hello, Stephanie. We missed you for a little bit.
I know. I like how my computer died just at that prime moment. I'm like, really?
All right. Any further questions, guys, or discussion?
No, I think I'm ready to make a motion. I just have one caveat in it. So, so I would move to approve the application for the COA as submitted for testimony for installation of accessibility lifts and enclosure to the southeast and northeast corners of the home at 97 West 12th, based on Secretary of Interior Standard 9. Because we did not see a window or door schedule, that's the only thing that I'm uncomfortable leaving open. So I guess it's a partial.
Yeah.
Andrew. So it's a partial, just because we haven't, I mean, I understand that, you know, we can make the caveat that the windows are to match the materiality and dimensions of the existing, but I don't know how we want to handle the door.
Yeah, I mean, why don't you take the best shot at where your head's at for the motion to complete it, and then we can talk through it after we see if there's a second. So I think I heard what you said for the windows, to match materials and proportions.
Right, which Don, you've
existing.
indicated that's your intent, that you're planning on keeping, I mean, with all the energy that you've put into making this look so perfectly a portion of the house, why would you change it? Why would you suddenly do something really odd with the windows, right? So,
No, absolutely not. We've gone to great lengths, like I said, with the past remodel to stay with the character and matching of the home, rebuilding all the porch, the front porch windows to have them custom rebuilt, doors custom rebuilt, in order to allow for airflow, and to have to, you know, there were old inserts to the front and we wanted more airflow, and we had that all custom rebuilt. So it is our intention to continue with that, the integrity to match everything in the home. Yeah.
And Don, design intent for the doors, is there a door on the property right now that would be close, like that Kim could point to in her motion? It looks like maybe you're still kind of thinking about transparency or 2 lights versus solid doors or screen doors.
If you look at the door that is there now,
Right.
there is those are custom built doors. That to get into the back of the home, and it would be ideal if that door could be repurposed.
Correct. So the intent, the door that you actually see on that elevation going into the garage is the exact replicate of that door. So if you look
of the existing door
of the
that goes into
existing
the
door,
home.
that's the exact same door when you look at that elevation. So everything was considered matched identically.
Then I can extend my motion to include, since I discussed windows in terms of materiality and dimensions, to also include that the door the final door design, if not repurposed, then is in keeping with the existing door, which would also be then the door that is on the southwest of the home as currently and will stay there, correct?
Mhm.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Does that tidy it up, Andrew?
Yeah, my only question would be, are doors and windows, in your motion, are doors and windows staff approved, or do you want it to come back?
Normally I'd say, in this case, staff approved.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
I would support that long motion.
Sorry, John, I'm a little wordy today.
And to Kim's point, that was John.
Yeah.
Phil. So,
Oh my.
so we have a support, motion of support. Any further discussion? We kind of discussed in between the two, which, but any further discussion required or conversation around Kim's motion, clarification?
So everything is a go pending approval of the door and window final designs by staff.
Correct.
All right, then I will start the vote. I'll just start at the top again. So first up, Cook.
I approve.
Fowler.
I approve.
Ike.
I approve.
Nieves.
I approve.
Shea.
I approve.
And Peterson also approves. So just let Phil know as soon as you guys kind of settle on a manufacturer or a cut sheet for the windows. And if the doors are custom built, I guess just kind of update him in terms of if anything changes. And I guess hopefully this times out well for you guys to start your project.
Perfect. Thank you.
It does. Thank you.
Thank you
From a
very much.
process standpoint, Phil will, I guess Mallory and Phil will get the COAs going and then we'll sign them. And usually it's within the week that we try to get that done. If I'm on my game, right, Mallory? Sometimes I'm not. So
He'll hound you.
all right. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Goodbye,
thanks for
everyone.
your time, everyone.
Take care.
Appreciate it.
Bye. All right. I don't think anybody else joined, right? So we have our first item. Are we?
Yeah.
Do we want to go through it, Phil? Were you seemed surprised that
Well, I'm
nobody was
surprised
on?
Jeff isn't here.
Yeah.
But Jeff doesn't. Maybe I'm not surprised.
I think we should probably go through it. Yes.
Yeah. Let me find it here.
And this is the one that we actually previewed, right? At our last
He's
in
gonna
March.
start barking. I didn't want him to bark in the middle
Hey,
of
buddy.
that.
Yeah.
Sorry,
He's got bribery going on over here.
he's sitting here going, ha. I haven't fed him yet. He's letting me know.
It's a baby and a dog in our meeting.
Yeah, sorry.
That's great.
Hang
Open
on
to
a
the
minute, I'll
public.
get a
It's open to the
teenager in
public.
Just a second.
Okay, so this is the one you did see when last we met.
Mhm.
This was coming. It was a larger application at the time, but it included a vent, actually one vent that turned into two vents on different sides of the building. Those two vents were approved administratively, and we are left with now the windows on the addition on the back of the building and on the east side of that back addition as well. So the north and east sides of the building on the first floor. That's the photograph on the top is the photograph of the existing windows. It's maybe there's a better one without all the lines on it. You want to go up one maybe? Yeah. Okay. So that's what the existing window looks like. The next slide that you saw was Jeff's version of it, just to quickly capture what he wanted to do with double hung windows. But if you go down several slides to the construction drawing, this one, yep, nope, yep, the one with 4, that's what is actually proposed. So it's 4 double hung windows to take the place of the essentially 3 windows that are there on that side of the house. And then the other side is similar, but it's a smaller window. And if you go down one more, that is the proposal for 2 double hung windows on that side elevation, that east side elevation.
And those are roughly 29, 30 inches wide, is that right?
Mm-hmm.
And the ones above it, Mallory, they were roughly the same size?
Almost 30 inches on the back, and same thing.
All the same. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
Could you scroll up again and where we see the, okay, so, no, keep going. Was it where we saw there's a window to the right-hand side there. Is that being replaced as well?
Not as part of this application.
I thought something was done with that already.
Why?
That's not, as far as I'm aware, that's not
okay.
Application.
All right.
Well,
maybe somebody could go. The window that's there, would you call that a picture window? I mean, it doesn't seem historic. It seems 50s or so.
It's part of the addition, so I doubt it is.
Okay, seems like too big of a window to be historic. And there was a point where that became a great improvement to be able to have a large window, but that was a much later period.
Yeah,
I would agree. I don't know that it reflects the addition, not necessarily the original home is kind of the way I see it. And yeah, I guess the windows they're proposing to put in are actually more in keeping with the double hung style is more in keeping with the adjacent one, like Mark pointed out. But neither are really direct reflections of the original windows. Do you guys agree? That have the trim work as you continue around the other side of the home?
Yeah, because there's no room to put the trim in there.
Nope, it's pretty tight.
I mean, I guess they could do something along the bottom that would make the wider, the wider trim, but yeah, it's on the back of the house.
My brain was going the other way. It was like, because it's on an addition, is it good that they're different, or is it good that there's a differentiation? A little more simple, not trying to mimic the false sense of the originals.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'd like to hear other people's thoughts on that too.
The originals are 2/2 as well, so it's different. These are 1/.
Yeah.
All right.
Yep. So where they're at too is not a super visible part of the home.
Yeah.
Yeah, being that it's an addition, and then if these aren't original windows, I don't feel as inclined to, be concerned over these.
But it is interesting. I mean, they're probably original to the addition. So are we, are we saying that it should stay because these really were the windows at the time of the addition, so they've become historic in their own right? But
just all you got to have is 50 years.
When was the addition built?
Probably in the 50s.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are like the 50s casement window. It's 2 casement windows with a picture window in the middle, which was very common in the late 50s, early 60s.
Did they say why they're changing out these windows?
Yeah, I had the same question. Any context or
what's wrong with them?
I think thermally they're better windows. The new windows will be better than this is. I think they're just trying to pick up on the general style of the windows in the rest of the house. and more operable. So more, all of them can open.
Yeah.
As opposed to that
Could
big
be answering for
fixture
them.
window that can't.
And are they, what are they? I know I should probably know. Are they wood?
Yeah. Yes, they
Yeah.
are.
Okay.
Yes.
One dot on that
Hella.
slate.
Yep. Got
Yeah.
it.
Do we need someone from the house to act on this, or is that not necessary?
It's not a requirement. If
Okay.
you've got some unanswered questions, then I would say yes. But
Yeah, if we feel like it's straightforward enough and it fits into a standard, then we can make a motion and Phil can just get a hold of them and let them know what the outcome of the meeting was. Do we have any outstanding questions?
I don't.
I don't think I do either. It's
No.
fairly straightforward.
Right.
I'm willing to make a motion.
Go
I
for it,
move
Mark.
to, is that okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
go for it.
I move to approve the application for a certificate of appropriateness as submitted per testimony for the installation of 6 double-hung windows at 121 West 12th Street based on local guidelines and the Secretary of Interior Standard Number 9, that new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old and shall be compatible with massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment.
Support.
All right, so that was Cook who motioned and Shay who supported. Any other discussion?
No.
If not, we'll move to vote. So Cook,
Support.
Fowler,
Approve.
Ike,
Approve.
Shay,
Approve.
and Nieves.
Approve.
Peterson also approves. Motion passes.
okay.
All right, I think that gets us to the end of the new business. And Phil, this is where we usually turn it over to you. It's an item of
This
old
should run
business.
pretty
And
quickly.
okay.
Yeah, I don't have a lot of information on any of these. The rescheduling of the joint meeting with Parks and Rec, we have not rescheduled it yet. They have not scheduled a meeting this month, so their next regular meeting is in June. I talked with Andy. He is going to talk to them or communicate with them and see when they are available. It could occur on either their meeting. Well, we actually meet at the same time, so it could occur on our next meeting date, regular meeting date, or we could look for a special meeting for this. I'm hopeful that maybe we'll be back together in person by then, but I'm not going to count on it because there's lots of graphics to go through on that in that conversation. Administrative approvals, there were 3. 83 15th Street, that was a side railing to match the front porch and a new fence to enclose the rear yard of that. 161 West 12th Street was a relocation of a window, a relocation and downsizing a bit of an existing window. It was on a side facade, but towards the back of the house and not readily visible from the street. And then 121 West 12th Street are the wall vents that I mentioned earlier.
Yep.
Committee and staff report CLG partnership grant application. We were not successful in that grant application. They believe they picked 2 other communities maybe I'll send you a memo on it just so you can see who did get that. 2 communities got survey help. 1 community got a National Register assistance, and 1 community got a design guideline assistance. But we were not successful. I had a conversation with the CLG, Alan, I forget his last name. Had a conversation with him prior to the decision being released, and he indicated there were quite a few submissions and lots of good applications on this. So they had a limited budget, and we'll see what their next round of grants looks like. Commission membership. There we will just be needing 1 new member to replace Andrew. Andrew's last meeting will be next month's meeting.
Well, thank Andrew.
What a weird time to go out, but
it's somebody coming in too. It's really strange.
True.
I've sent emails to the Historic Neighborhood Association, to the Holland Historic Trust, and to the archives, letting them know we have an opening and asking them to refer people here. They've all responded that they will let people know, and if they hear of anyone, they'll either have them contact us directly or they will let me know. I have not heard from anybody specifically yet. Mallory has placed a notice on our website. So if anybody happens to be looking through the website, they may come across the opening there. So I'm turning to you all as well. This is being recorded, and although I'm not sure, I think it's still being recorded. It's being recorded and probably will be on television. So I'm not asking for names on the air, so to speak. But if you have specific people you'd like to recommend, it'd be great if you could let Mallory or me know. We'd like to follow up with that. John?
Do I understand that person could be from outside the district?
Yes, that person could be.
Okay.
I'll send you all a copy of what I sent to the Historic Trust and those folks, just to get a sense of how I framed it for them. But yes, it could be. Not on the agenda, but I had a question for you. I was looking through materials here and haven't found it yet.
Hey, Phil, I don't want you to get too far.
Okay.
I have a couple of questions. So I guess I was prepared to come to the meeting today and just say, in light of everything that's going on, that I would be, if you struggle to find another commissioner, like I'm happy to just kind of continue on until everyone feels comfortable with the replacement.
So moved.
And then my other question, I guess, was going to be how we handle the fact that I'm the chairperson. Like, so maybe it's none of my business since I'm the one going off, but I was just curious if, what that process is. If there's another vote, or if, like, I guess it's not like the new person would come into the role of chairperson, right? That would be crazy.
That would be crazy.
Unless they wanted
Unless they
it.
have impressed everybody. Yeah, there would be an election of officers. We would probably do it when the new person is seated, so that would probably be the July meeting.
Okay.
I don't know if you've had a regular month that you've done that before, but typically my experience has been it's when you've got the new group together. And it should come quickly. So it's an election of officers, and it's up to the 7 of you when you want to move Kim into that seat, I guess. It's up to you to decide who gets.
You guys are so funny.
Is there an option? I mean, is there an option for Andrew to continue, or was that just?
I think there's something in there about the architect.
Phil sent an update. In full transparency, I'm probably ready to be done, guys. But
Okay,
I'm happy to I'm happy to continue to help in light of everything that's going on.
That's
so
yeah.
That's a good offer.
Yeah, I appreciate I appreciate the interest, but so I will plan for sure to be the chairperson in June, and then we can all just kind of recruit a new member for the July meeting. Is that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. If you've got names, shoot them to me.
Sounds good.
I've heard from one member who was a former member who has expressed some interest, but also noted that he travels a lot, but this is a good time because of everybody staying at home. So I'm not quite sure what that means.
Huh, interesting.
But anyway, let me know if you got ideas. One other item, I don't know how you've handled this before. I've received communication from someone who lives in a non-contributing building, wants to make a variety of changes to the building. My past, the way I've handled this in the past in another city is that they still apply for a certificate of appropriateness, and they are reviewed, and essentially the standards are relaxed, I would say, in terms of how they're interpreted, but the intent is to make a building no less conforming or less respectful of the historic district all around them, but doesn't hold them necessarily to kind of the letter of, you got to replace wood windows with wood windows and that sort of thing. I frankly, I took a quick look at the house, and it's probably a 1960s or a 1970s ranch that probably has all artificial siding and windows and all of that anyway. But I'm just wondering how you handle non-contributing structures.
We handled one in the last, I'd say 18 months on 9th Street that was a non-contributing, and it did come before us for a COA, but obviously it was relaxed because it didn't need to meet their criteria, but it did still come before us.
Okay.
Remember that one? It was the one that had the sliding glass door as the front door of the house. Yeah.
Yep.
Remind me, Phil, is there a difference between non-contributing and non-qualifying? That is, let's say a house is built in 1955 or something. Is it non-contributing because it's too new? And then if that's the only thing, would we want to at least keep the renovations in the style of whatever that house was built as? Because at some point it's going to become possibly contributing as it ages into the fold. Is that clear?
Yeah, it is clear. In this house,
the one that we went through was definitely non-contributing because it had been so, it was old enough for somebody who had been so chopped up that there was no semblance of a historical time period to identify with the home itself.
I guess that's my question, is that is there a difference between something that simply didn't qualify but could qualify in the future based on its age, or is a house that's non-contributing always going to be non-contributing because it's a wrecked house that can't be redeemed? I mean, that's what
this one was noted as non-contributing. I believe it was noted as non-contributing because it was not old enough. You see it, you will say it's non-contributing for other reasons as well, in fact. But there is no, non-contributing is non-contributing.
Okay, there's not a difference between houses that are just crappy houses that have been modified beyond redemption or a house that's simply too new.
No.
And Mark, and the thing is, I personally could see a difference between the two.
Yeah, that's what I would think is a pristine 1960s ranch house. You wouldn't want them to put some Greek columns on the front of it.
Nope.
Because at some point it could be a great example of a 1950s ranch house.
Yeah.
Right.
So to that point, that's why it's good for them to come for come for review, even though it's technically designated non-contributing.
Yeah.
Because in the future, who knows? Like maybe we'll get a grant in the future, and then we can add properties to the district.
Okay. I will let them know and we'll get some information on that one. Other than that, I have not heard
Sounds good.
any applications for next month yet. Maybe it's a little early, but.
Yeah, construction starts again this week, right?
Yeah, supposed to.
So
Yeah, I
might
think so.
might pick up a little.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So that's all I have.
Thanks, Phil.
All right, then all we need is a motion to adjourn, guys.
Motion to adjourn.
That was Ike.
Second.
Support.
And that was Fowler and Shea. Everybody's ready.
Woo, woo.
All right, all those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I also say yes. So
Thank you,
we're done.
Andrew, for running this.
Mhm.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody.
It's different but
Thanks,
fun.
Phil.
So we'll see
yeah.
you guys next month.
Okay.
care.
Okay.
Take
All
care.
right.
everybody.
Take care.
Bye all.
Okay.